Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, we're going to actually start to build out a couple pages in our Rails application that we can use to build upon, and then we'll also start to actually use devise to say, hey, on this page, a user has to sign in to be able to get to this page. And we'll also clean up a few other things from the previous video. So first off, I'm going to go to my command line. I'm in my directory, Rails MVP starter. I'm going to say Rails G controller. Now this G stands for generate. It's shorthand for Rails generate controller. And I'm going to say home index. Now home is going to be the name of the controller, and this index parameter we're passing in here is going to say create a route or create a view called index. And so that's going to be the home page for this application. I'm going to run that super fast. That created the homes controller, and then I'm also going to say Rails G controller account index. Now this account page is going to be for a user that's signed in to see their account in this application. It's not going to do much to start, but it's going to allow us to see how we need to authenticate a user before they can access this page. So I'm going to run that command as well. Now if we go to our application, in our controllers directory, we now have two controllers, home and account. In our views directory, we have two new folders or directories that have the views for these. So if I also open up the routes directory, there's two new routes that have been put in here. So if I just run the application, Rails S, and then I go to home index, that routes us to this view. This is just some HTML that Rails generates automatically, and then we could do the same thing for account. Nothing pretty here, but it did generate a lot of code that we don't have to go hand write. So for our home page, we really don't need to do a whole lot. I do want to make that home page the root route. So instead of someone we really don't want anyone to ever go to home/index. What we really want them to do is to be routed on the root of this site to be routed to home index. So I'm going to delete this route, and then I'm going to delete all the routes. And now the root route, or the root of the application, will go to this controller and to this action. So if I open up that controller real quick just to make it easy for you to see, there's this action here, and that action maps to this view here. So instead of saying homes index, we're just going to say Rails MVP starter application, and then here we'll just say welcome. Now if we refresh this page, again, we do not have much going on here, but we do have this starter application. Now the next thing that I want to show you, well, first off, I am an unabashed URL snob. I can't stand underscores. That's just kind of like a computery looking URL to me, same as I mentioned earlier with database IDs. I don't like that. So I do want to update the default URLs for devise, and we can do that by adding these path names to this devise for. Now this is a method call that just says, we're going to use devise for users, and I'm going to add to that this extra parameter of path names. And so instead of underscore sign in, it's going to be dash sign in. Instead of sign underscore up, it'll be register, and instead of sign underscore out, it'll be it'll be log out. So when I change those path names, now when we're routed to any of those forms, it'll use what I think is a little bit of a nicer URL. So I wanted to clean that up from the last video real quick. And then now if we go back to devise, we'll see that in our controllers, we can say, hey, you need to authenticate this user before you allow them to see this route. So if we go back to our application, right now you can get to this account page without being signed up. So I want to go to this controller and I want to add this before action. This basically says before you allow any of these methods to be invoked and to render the views, we want to call authenticate user. Now this method is given to us by Devise. That's the beauty of Devise, is it gives you a lot of free stuff. So we're going to say authenticate the user. Now if I come back to this and reload this page, it'll be like, whoa, we're not going to let you come to this page until you sign in. If I click log in here, nothing's going to happen because I haven't actually signed up. So I'm going to go to sign up. I'm going to say click sign up, and then now I'm allowed to get to this view. So what have we done in this quick video here? We have created a couple controllers that auto-generated the controller and the views that go along with that, and we have updated the paths or the URLs. I didn't show you the URL for the sign in and register, but now we have better URLs for that. The last thing I want to hit on before we move on to the next video is I want to go into this models. I'm going to go into this models directory and look at the user model again, and I want to talk about this enum roles. First off, if I open up PG admin again, I know I keep doing this, but I want you to just get really comfortable with being able to look at the database. But if I go to users, there's this role column here, and that role column is going to have a value of 0, 1, or 2. So the way an enum works in Ruby and in Rails is, even though we have these symbols, it's actually going to, when it's stored in the database, it's going to be a number or an integer or an enumerable type value, like 0 or 1 or 2. So here's the reason I want to bring this up. One big gotcha is you don't want to come in after you've already launched your application and put in a new role like this. You never want to do it in the middle, because now the tester would be 1, but in your database it would actually be what was the owner, and then now it'll change to the tester. If that doesn't make sense to you, it's okay right now, but whenever you add new roles, you want to add them to the end of your enum here instead of at the beginning. That's just a little gotcha. This role system is super basic. It's not super powerful, but it is simple and it works for a lot of simple use cases. But I just wanted to mention that. Don't ever put roles in the middle. Always put them at the end of this array, and then that will keep you from having unintended bugs where your roles start to get mixed up. So thanks so much for watching. We created some controllers. We started to use Devise a little bit. Now we're going to keep trying to build out this really simple application to make our forms and the application easier to access. So we'll start with some navigation in the next video. Thanks for watching. See ya.